Welcome to another episode of the Confessions of a Recovering Landlord podcast, where you'll learn the secrets commercial landlords would prefer you not know. I'm your host, Jan Gibbons, along with my co-host and experienced commercial real estate broker, Bob Gibbons.
That's me.
Brought to you by Riata Commercial Realty, where we exclusively represent users of office and warehouse properties. Landlords have representation. Do you? Okay. Each week, I get to have a really good conversation with a seasoned broker. But today, for the first time, I get to have a conversation with a seasoned broker. And now, ta-da, a published author.
That would be me.
Take your bow, sir. Take your bow. Tell us the name of said book.
Well, it's going to blow you away. It's Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
When you get a good tagline, you stick with it.
I'm sure nobody could have seen that one coming.
What inspired this book for you?
Holy crap. Well, it was like a long time ago. And the idea really was that, because I was a landlord guy for 20 years, I was the guy that, signed the leases, that approved budgets, capital expenditures, all that kind of stuff for lots of buildings around the country, and mostly in Dallas-Fort Worth, but, in other markets around the country as well. Who better to represent a company, and who better to provide information to companies that lease or buy buildings than the guy that used to run things on the landlord's behalf? And so that was the idea, was giving the users the inside tips and things that would help them do better deals.
Well, it actually started as a tagline with a networking group you were in. Hello, I'm Bob. I'm a recovering landlord. And I thought that was hysterical. I love that.
Yeah,
but then it morphed into the Confessions when it got into a book format. And I love it. I thought that was a great segue.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do that at like a chamber of commerce or business networking or other business groups. And I'd always, everybody got to get up and give their little 30-second pitch or whatever. And I'd get up and say, hi, my name's Bob and I'm a recovering landlord. And it's definitely an AA, sort of ripoff. Yeah. And everybody would chuckle. And then I'd go in and say, after being a landlord guy for 20 years, blah, 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 I now represent users only. So yeah, that's definitely where it came from. That's where it started. But anyway.
Where can our readers, listeners, friends, and foe find this book?
Well, it's on Amazon for sure. I mean, you got to be on Amazon, of course.
In Kindle and paperback formats.
Yes, Kindle and paperback. We skipped the hardback just because, it's more expensive. And ultimately, I didn't think it really mattered that much. So it's paperback and Kindle. But I thought it was only going to be on Amazon until this morning. Our son texted me and was like, hey, you're on Barnes and Noble. And I'm like, you're kidding me. I had to go Google it myself because I didn't even know it was going to be on Barnes and Noble.
Too.
So
that was pretty fun.
You can't go in the store and get it, but at least it's not going to be on the shelf in Barnes and Noble, but you can go there and they'll order it for you, I guess, if you don't want to go to Amazon.
Maybe tonight I'll drive over there and just walk up and order one. Just to say so.
You need to walk up and say, do you have Confessions of a Recovering Landlord? And when they say, what? No, we don't have that. You're like, you can't be serious. That is the hottest book going.
Well, speaking of which, so how many landlords reached out and offered you cold hard cash not to print this book?
Yeah, goose egg on that puppy. Yeah, that would be fun to think that they did. But you know what? The book is not a book for dumping on landlords.
We're not slamming the other side of the table.
No, I mean, landlords and their leasing agents are there for a very specific purpose, and they have a fiduciary responsibility. I did for 20 years. So I was doing what I was supposed to do for 20 years. And now I'm on the other side of that. So it's not to say that the people that are the landlords or the landlords' representatives are bad people. They're doing their thing. They're doing the thing they should be doing. It's just that what they're doing is trying to maximize the value of the building and the cash flow for the landlord. And that is diametrically opposed to what the tenant wants, which is the least cost. So we're just on opposite sides of a transaction, but that doesn't mean either party is bad.
Well, that leads into a really cool chapter title that I think is probably your favorite confession.
Yeah, friend or foe. Yeah, that's actually confession number one. So each chapter, we don't call them chapters, we call them confessions. But
Well, if
yeah,
we
that's
covered all your sins, this would have been more like War and Peace, or sorry, we're just going to stick with real estate here.
yeah, real estate confessions. Let's leave it at that.
My bad. Maybe I have a book to write.
All right, that's a different podcast. I'm never going to that website again. But anyway, thank you, Larry the Cable Guy. No, anyway, so yeah, friend or foe is definitely my favorite confession. It's number one, and I put it as number one because it is the most important. And the whole idea is, who represents you and who is on your side. And it's kind of like I start the book off by a memory of when I was a kid, and we'd have a pickup game in the neighborhood to play football or baseball or whatever, especially football. And how did you know who was on your team? Well, shirts and skins. So half the kids take off their shirts, half the kids leave them on. Now you know who's on your team and who's not. In commercial real estate, it's not as easy. And you see a sign, you call the person on that sign, you think, oh, this person's being really nice helping me. And they are being really nice and they are helping you, but that doesn't mean that they're representing you or looking out for your best interest.
And most of them, I don't want to see them without their shirt on, just saying. So.
I am not going to comment on that one way or the other. But anyway, so, I mean, it's like if somebody sued you and said, but you know what? Attorneys are really expensive. Can we just split the cost of an attorney? We'll just share an attorney in this lawsuit. I mean, that's the dumbest thing you ever heard of, right? And yet in commercial real estate, this stuff happens all the time. You see one big company representing the owner, maybe they are actually the owner as well, and they have their own people leasing the building and managing the building, and then they have their tenant rep people bringing a tenant to negotiate in that same building. And it's like, why would you do that? And it's funny because in the law profession, they're not allowed to do that. If I'm an attorney in a law firm and you're an attorney in a law firm, we can't represent opposite sides of the same lawsuit. That's just not allowed.
Fiduciary is not being taken seriously in that case.
Exactly. And sadly, that's the norm in commercial real estate, not the exception.
Well, and I don't think it's exactly malicious. It's just a lack of knowledge. And I think this is really where this book was born, was trying to level the playing field so tenants have the same fighting chance a landlord does.
And when you say lack of knowledge, that's a lack of knowledge on the user side, the client side, not on the side of the company.
No.
I guarantee you all the big companies always try to be full service, and they put that in the sense of that's a good thing, which it's not for the client. It is for the company, but not for the client. So that's what friend or foe is all about. That's confession one. Have somebody who's only looking out for your best interest and not trying to play all sides of the deal.
Yeah. So how long did this project take you? And how many times were you ready to take it out back and shoot it?
Yeah, this is not my favorite question.
But I think it shows perseverance. I know you feel like it took a long time, and it did.
An embarrassingly long period of time.
It's not like you weren't doing other things.
I had lunch with a guy this week who, from the moment he picked up the pen to the moment it was in Amazon, was 90 days. And I was like, not a chance, because I had this idea like 15 years ago. And I went to book, how to write a book seminars and, all kind. I probably overthought it. I would argue.
You're a bit collecting all data needed prior to commencing.
Fact finder. Anyway, so I had that idea probably 15 years ago. I probably started writing it 12 years ago. But there were times when I would put it aside and I wouldn't even look at it for 3 or 4 years. So yeah, I mean, it's taken me a long time to get it done, but if you really look at the collective period of time, it's not like I've been faithfully slaving away for 12 years to write this thing.
Well, how did you find the time to write it?
Well, and your priorities are going to determine what you spend your time on. And if it's a priority, you're going to do it. And that was part of the problem, is that for those 3 or 4 year periods of time, it wasn't the priority. Something else was. And I set it aside. And ultimately, after joining the strategic coach end of 2019, and going through the pandemic, I really had to sit down and say, all right, am I going to, as you say, shoot it, or am I going to get it done? And I decided it was time to get it done. And it was really something that I wanted to do. I'd invested enough time in it. I should do it. So that's when we really started interviewing self-publishing companies that would help us with editors and line editors and book cover editors. I mean, I did a 99 designs competition for the book cover, I don't even know how many years ago. And so I've had this book cover sitting around for a long time, and I had every intention of using the book cover. And when we got to the book cover editor, she was like, got to have your name on it. I mean, your face on it. I was like, wait a minute, you want my face? You want a picture of me on the cover of this book? She said, yeah, you got to have that. And she sent me the first mock-up. Sadly, I made the mistake of just sending her. She said, send me pictures of you. So I just sent her like a bunch of pictures, and she picked one out that was horrible. I mean, it looks so, I don't know what to call it. It just, I would have been horribly embarrassed. I mean, the one that's on the cover is, it's okay. It's not the most beautiful picture in the world, but compared to the other one, I'm pretty proud of it.
I love it. I think it's a great picture. Which parts of the book were the most fun to write, and which parts were the hardest?
Well, the hardest is easy to answer because there's I think it's confession 11 is beware the lease. And that's really, the idea there is that the lease is written by the landlord. And so you can guess that it's heavily slanted in the landlord's favor. So we're always trying to find ways to make that more balanced and fair. I mean, I was on a phone call this morning with a client going through changes to the lease that we had requested that the landlord either said yes or no to. And so we were trying to find the last, half a dozen or so items that we really wanted to go back to the landlord and pursue improving it further. And so that's really what that confession 11 is all about. And so to write that and trying to synthesize, the concepts in there that are, the topics that need to be addressed by the tenant, by the tenant rep, and by the tenant's attorney, that I wouldn't say is the most fun or exciting part of it, but it's an excruciatingly important part, because the reality is we spend all kinds of time negotiating deals. That lease better dang well actually reflect what we thought we negotiated, or it's all for naught. And so we need to make sure it's right. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's only what's in that lease that matters, because no matter what we've said or discussed previously, all goes out the window as soon as you put your name on that dotted line. So that was, I would say, probably the least fun, but necessary. Let's see, most fun, probably the introduction. Actually.
Absolutely. That's the most fun to read.
Yeah. I mean, the introduction is basically my real estate story, how I got into the commercial real estate business while I was 20 years old and still in college as a junior. And, sort of what's happened to me since then. And so it talks about my landlord experience. It talks about crazy Paul Granager, who gave me my first job in real estate when I was in college. And he's a very colorful character and a great guy. I mean, I'll tell you, great guy doesn't quite even cover it, because, I mean, when I got my master's degree, we were living in Austin, and I had to come to Dallas and commute here for my last course. And so I had to come up here once a week for a semester to finish up that thing. And it was a night class. And sometimes, it was a project class. So I might not get finished with the class till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then I'd have to, drive 3 hours back to Austin. And Paul's like, forget that. Here's a key to my house. Just come crash with us. Even if we're not here, it's fine. You have a key. Just come on. And that's just amazing. He's a great guy. So
he was a mentor. He was your first mentor.
Yeah, he seriously was a mentor. And so the introduction was definitely the most fun. And if, honestly, if somebody gets the book and all they do is read the intro and chapter 1, I'm happy.
So when will the book be made into a movie?
More importantly, who's going to play you?
That's right. I have some
And
names
Margaret's
selected.
and Margaret's no longer available. Who's number 2?
She might be.
For those listeners who have no idea who Anne Margaret is, go look her up. Fine woman.
Okay, so what was learned by writing this book?
Wow, what was learned writing a book? Well, I learned it's a lot harder than I thought. I learned there was a lot of things I didn't know, like what it really takes to publish a book. I mean, I could have written anything I wanted, put it up on Amazon through Kindle Direct Publishing, and it would have been printed if anybody would have ever bought it, or if I bought it and handed it out. But that doesn't mean it was going to be a good book. So, knowing who you need to use the resources you need to make things good is important. And it's kind of like the Dan Sullivan book with Dr. Benjamin Hardy called Who Not How. Fantastic book. I definitely recommend people read this book. And it's all about, you don't know how to do everything. And even if you do know how to do something, that doesn't mean you're the best person to do it or the right person to do it, because you may not have the right tools of the trade. You should be doing something else, et cetera. And
leverage your time and leverage your talent.
Yeah, exactly. And you can get an expert to do things for you that are probably less expensive on an hourly basis than what you should be worth. So, use experts. And so this was really an exercise in that in a major way. If I had to do the book over again, I probably would have even done it more so that way.
From
using more people, and it would have gotten done a lot faster had I done that. So,
well, we were doing it on a shoestring, and it definitely gets expensive as you use these people.
Right.
But the product that came out of it is something I'm really proud of, and that we'll use in training agents as we hire more. So I think it's kind of a Bible for how to start a tenant rep business, how to grow a tenant rep business, how to be an expert in your field. Speaking of which, how can people find you?
Well, they can find me best online. LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Bob Gibbons.
And Riata Commercial Realty.
Yeah, Riata Commercial Realty is a great way to find it. We're also on Twitter and Facebook and
Instagram and LinkedIn. Also, our website is texastenantrep.com, and we will have a URL for the book on there that will take you directly to Amazon.
Well, you can actually go to confessionsofrecovering.landlord.com, and that'll take you, I think that takes you to the, what does
that'll
that
take you to the URL on the website, which will direct you to Amazon.
Well, the landing page on the website. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that's available.
Well, another thing that we have been doing with our podcast and with just other things that we're writing is we put a monthly biz letter out, and it has all of our podcasts in it, and it has usually a couple of good articles in there. And I'm sure that we'll have more about the book in there as well. So if you'd like to sign up to get that, you can also do that through texastenantrep.com. If you scroll down, go to the main page and scroll down, there's a place to sign up. Just put your email in there and I'll make sure you get it every month.
Absolutely.
Very proud of you, sir.
Thank you. Is there anything else I'm supposed to say here that
I think we've said it all?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your support. You definitely lived with me throughout this whole thing, and I appreciate that. And I won't do it to you again anytime soon.
So that answered my question about no volume 2.
It won't be called Confessions of a Recovering Landlord Part 2, but I'm not saying
Confessions of How I Murdered My Husband Part 1.
I'm not saying there will never.
Podcast.
I'm not going to say there's never going to be another book, but I'm not going to use that same title again.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we appreciate your time, and we'd love you to get a copy.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening. And just a reminder to send in questions to see if we can stump Bob.
Not going to happen.
We really appreciate your taking the time to tune into this episode. We would love it if you would give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And if you are on our YouTube channel, we would love to read your feedback in the comment section. Also, be sure to subscribe so you get notified when we publish new episodes. Thanks, and see you next time.
Bye.